Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello, dear students. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Ayaz Muhammad Khan, and this is our lecture number 3 regarding grounded theory research. As per the agenda, in our today's lecture, which is part 1, we'll be studying what do we mean by grounded theory, and rather what is theory as well. And then we'll discuss about the types of grounded theory research. Is it a method or a theory? And then challenges that are faced while conducting this theory, then merits and demerits, and ultimately I'll show you some of the suggested readings that would increase your exposure towards grounded theory research. Our second part would comprise of data collection methods in grounded theory, a validity process of grounded theory, and we would discuss about theoretical sampling, note taking, and different things like that in grounded theory research. Whereas in the lecture part 3, we would be discussing data analysis in grounded theory, and this is the only research type which has given a comprehensive data analysis strategy. And because of this data analysis strategies, many IT specialist has developed software for analysis. Then we'll also study memo writing, constant comparison method, which is very important in this research, and data saturation, and ultimately we would finish with some of the important studies that have been conducted in this field. So let's start. So before we start our lecture number 3, let's go through the definition so that if you have a little bit gap that can be bridged. We know that grounded theory is a research method, and we are actually getting over it as a research method that will enable us to develop a theory which offers an explanation about the main concern of the population of your substantive area and how that concern is resolved or processed, meaning thereby um, grounded theory is grounded on the data. That is what we know. Then second important thing is that we got to try to explore the foundation on which the whole phenomena is laying, so that not only we can judge that phenomena over it, but we can make prediction as well. So that is what we do in grounded theory. And we already know that Glasser and Strauss, I mean, two major proponent, uh, put really, I mean, a high emphasis on theory as process. That is, theory as an ever developing entity, not as a perfected product. Then substantive theory and formal theory. Substantive is one where you have empirical inquiry and you have a lot of evidence from the empirical inquiry. But formal theories are actually conceptual in nature. So we go into the realm of imagination, into the realm of uh, you can say that go deep into the phenomena and think about its uh, pillars on which the whole theory could stand. We have already talked about theory in our lecture number 1 of the grounded theory. Let's talk it about in the perspective of Chalmers, who used to believe that grounded theory method consists of simultaneous data collection and analysis. You would keep on collecting data as well as you would keep on analyzing the data. Only by this procedure you will be in a position to develop a theory, with each informing and focusing the other throughout the research process. As grounded theorists, we begin our analysis early to help us focus further data collection, meaning thereby in the first phase you collect the data, analyze it, but actually that analysis leads you to further collection of data and analysis. Grounded theory entails development increasingly abstract ideas about research participants, meaning actions, words, and seeking specific data to fill out, refine, and check the emergence conceptual categories. Now, in that picture, which was designed by Michael Muller in 2012, you can say formal theory and substantive. Initially, uh, what you do from open and substantive coding, you move to actually selective and theoretical coding. Three versions of the grounded theory. Ever since the book written by Strauss and Glossier on discovery of grounded theory, with the passage of time, Gloss gave his own version, and his version started in a book in 1992 where he based his grounded theory on theoretical sensitivity and on interpretivist paradigm. Radical focus was on data. In the meantime, Strauss, who has taken a new line with Corbin, actually formulated the largest school in grounded theory, where members can be recognizable in the use of coding paradigm. They developed extensive coding schemes, balanced data and formal theory. Last but not the least, Charma's constructivist version that emerged in 1990 actually was based on constructivist account, which stated meaning is not objectively pulled out of people, rather it is co-constructed. If you just recall, I would tell you that Glasser and Strauss, when wrote the discovery of grounded theory in 1967, then Glasser and Strauss departed for the betterment of grounded theory, as Strauss went with the Corbin and wrote qualitative analysis in 1987, and then basics of qualitative research in 1990. Whereas we saw that Glasser initially wrote theoretical sensitivity and then emergence versus forcing. Uh, this was the book written by. Then Corbin went, or I mean rather, upgraded the work of Straussian grounded theory, similarly Stern, Glasserian, and then we know that the latest form that we are available uh, are actually Charma's constructivist, or Clark situational analysis, or uh, Schatzman dimensional analysis. So we will get through it one by one in the upcoming. Let's study the procedural steps in developing any theory, especially under the banner of grounded theory. At first, theory is necessarily localized to a single site or person or data source. Suppose you go to the Kailash Valley and just focus your study to a particular area in Kailash. So you go for theoretical sampling. Where should I find my second site to test my initial theory? And after development of theory on that area, now you think that where in the Kailash Valley should I go? Because there are different tribes in that valley, and you wish to see how my theory can be developed further. So the second theory is usually broader and stronger. And theoretical sampling, after the analysis that you have made in the initial phase, the analysis would lead you to look for further participant in your research who can add to that theory. So this is what we call theoretical sampling. You have got a theory in your mind that what sort of people would be required for you in the second stage, so that your theory may strengthen. So the very first one, then second theory, and the successive theory gain in uh, what happens that it gains in breadth and depth of the theory. Uh, it is a very iterative sort of work, and the more you go into the depth, theory becomes both descriptive as well as abstract. So, student, here are the different steps that you would use because theory is co-constructed with description. So initially what you do after you have got that data from interviews and transcription, you start your coding, and from coding you theorize with the first data that you get, and in the meantime you just do constant comparison with data and theory, and then abductive testing, this confirmatory or theoretical sampling you do, then another iterative sort of coding and theorizing, memo writing, memo sorting, and then it is an unstoppable work. It is not a sort of work that would end and you would specifically say this is the end, because that there is subjectivity, and this is qualitative research. The grounded theory process, but this process is actually developed by Charmas, and you can say once you identify your research problem and you go for initial data, you get your initial data through interviews or observations and do initial sort of coding, and while doing coding, you would be writing your memos as well, so that you may remember which code actually relates to what particular code, and then you would go for your second data collection on the basis of your first data analysis. This is what we call theoretical sampling. You got to see the people who are well versed, who knows things very well, who has in-depth exposure of that phenomena where they are residing. So advanced memoing, refining conceptual categories that you would do, and again you would go for theoretical sampling and make many more new participants who can tell you things. As a matter of fact, the first time the participant with which you conducted the interview, the second time and the third time, but the third time the people whom you will be conducting interview, as a matter of fact, they would be vetting all the foundation that you have explored from your research work carried on in the first phase of analysis and in the second phase of analysis. Here is comparatively, an easy one description which shows that how you commence your research work by conducting interviews, you transcribe them, write memos, code them, and go for theoretical sampling. You go for the people who can not only verify or vet what you have explored, but tell you many new things, and many new things that you have explored from previous researches. You can go and talk to those people, and then you constantly do constant comparative method, and analysis of this second state and the third state would ultimately lead you to the final theory development. Let's see, first of all, what do we mean by constant comparison method? As I have told you earlier in some slide, that the purpose of constant comparison method is to determine the consistency in coding. And most important thing in constant comparison method is comparing data to data, then data to concepts, and then concept with the concept. So on you compare one interview with the other. So first step you adopt is to convert qualitative data, all relevant data that can be brought to bear on a point. That is what you do. Then you go for theoretical ideas, new categories, their properties, hypotheses that are developed through it, and interrelated hypotheses. So you constantly redesign and reintegrate theoretical notions while reviewing the whole material. Then one that is combined analytical procedure of constant comparison method. You go from explicit coding of the first approach to the theory development in the second approach. And last but not the least, where you go for analytical induction, you combine all the things which I told you: data to data, data to concept, and concept to concept, so that you ultimately reach to the theory building. Memo writing. Memo writing is something of an art form. A letter is not a memo, nor is a memo a letter. A memo is a short, to the point communication conveying your thoughts, reactions, or opinions on something, especially what you have described. While writing different codes, you wish to make one code associated with the other one, and here memo writing comes. A memo can call people to action or broadcast a bit of timely news. With memo writing, shorter is better. Dear students, here is an example of coding. What you have to do is just read it thoroughly. You would say how the main concepts in this paragraph have been given a particular code, and ultimately those particular codes are joined together to form a, you can say, concept, or these concepts are given different names. So you just have to read it once, and then we'll discuss that. In this diagram, data component and analytical practices are given in sequential form. You can see that how from data, open coding, then axial coding, between open coding and axial coding, you see they develop categories. And between axial coding and selective coding, they go for concepts and different dimensions. And from selective coding to core concept, actually this is the emergent topic. This is the emergent key foundation on which the whole phenomena is based. Let's discuss what do we mean by code. A code is a word, a phrase, or a sentence that represents aspects of a data or captures the essence or feature of a data. Suppose there is a para written, or there are 3 or 4 lines, and you can sum up those 3 or 4 lines, or the key idea in those 3 or 4 lines, in one word, in a phrase or a sentence. This is what we call code. So a code is a qualitative inquiry. A code in qualitative inquiry is most often a word or a short phrase that symbolically assigns a summative, salient, essence capturing, or evocative attribute for a portion of language based on visual data. I would recommend you the book of Saldana, uh, where you would be able to look deep into those mechanism of developing different types of codes. So, what is this pre-coding stage? These are actually things to consider before starting your work of coding. The very first thing is researcher's influence. Factor influencing the data analysis process, maybe your background, your beliefs and biases, your interest, philosophical paradigm. So far as your beliefs and biases are concerned, do write them in the form of bracketing, so that the reader may know that whatever you are writing, or the foundations you are declaring about a phenomena based on the data, are actually originated from the data. There is no mix up of your ideas, your concept in it. And the second thing, memoing, documenting personal reflections and impression. That is what I have told you, that memoing you can do at the data collection phase and data analysis phase both. So memoing you can start right away while collecting the data, or while you are sitting at your home or analyzing the data, you can do it as well. Let's see how the number of open code actually shrinks to central codes, and ultimately leads to theoretical codes. Suppose you have got an interview comprised of 10 pages. So you might develop 100, 200, 300 codes. The second step, this is what we call open coding. The second step is that you start looking at analogies, you start looking at similarities, and wherever you find similar, what you do, you give all those codes kept in a bunch, a code which is called as central code. So maybe initially you have 300 open codes, but the central code may sum up to 25, and from those 25 you start once again uh, thinking about the sequence of the things, how they can be written, and this is what we call the theoretical stage, where those 25 central codes ultimately finish up to 5 or 7 theoretical codes. And these are the codes on which you can write your whole, theory. While writing the theory, you describe the things that you have written in the central code. From the open code, you can take that transcript and copy paste while writing, explaining theoretical codes. So, dear students, I would request that you now know what is coding, what is open coding, what is axial coding, and how do you develop different theoretical concepts. It is better for you to listen that 6 minute lecture where you would be able to understand coding process line by line. I would give you 6 minutes to listen it and then come again and discuss with me. Great credit of Saldana, who in 2013 gave this picture to us in his book, Coding Strategies. And just look at it, the start where we have disintegrated codes, and then the second phase from coding we start sorting. This is the process where axial coding comes. Synthesizing, this is the process where we start developing from those axial coding the theoretical themes, and ultimately we are in a position to write the theory. So these are the three cycles that you got to keep it in your mind, get through it deeply, and then you would understand that what are attribute codes, descriptive codes, emotion codes. You got to keep it in mind while you go for coding in a transcribed interview. One of the best definition given by Philip about qualitative analysis was that it is about reducing data without losing its meaning. So the coding purpose, as a matter of fact, what does it do? That the interviews that has been transcribed over 25 to 30 pages, you give it codes, maybe in hundreds, and then shrink it to categories, maybe in dozens, and then to themes, maybe in tens, and ultimately it lead to the theory, which is actually the crux of the whole work. I would request all PhD students, master's students should also listen to it, but MPhil students should also listen to it, but the PhD must listen it very carefully. I mean, this is meaning of theory, a very good lecture, though it's lengthy, but once you get over it after my lecture, you would be in a position to understand the development of theory with the perspective, with an interpretivist perspective. So please get through it whenever you have time, and then you will feel that your concept has matured a lot. Here is an assignment for you. All PhD and MPhil students, what you have to do, identify an issue for grounded theory, develop a research question, develop an interview protocol, and you know that would be open-ended. Go get through some interview, rather conduct some interview, then transcribe those recorded interview, and then I would request you to manually develop OpenXL and selective coding, and that is what you will submit to me, because this would have marks for you. So this is end of my lecture. Thank you very much, my dear students, for listening so patiently. It was really hectic to design those three lectures, especially on grounded theory. Still, there are many things, because of my limitation I wouldn't have been able to make you understand. But in our face-to-face meeting, I would surely try to do it. Thank you very much.